Well, hello. Happy New Year. It's somewhere in the middle of January 2016. I'm Claudia Donnell, and this is That's Tasty. It's cold. As a matter of fact, today we have a wind chill factor below 0. Nasty. I don't like it. And we had our first snowfall that was measurable last night. I don't like that either. So what we're having today is we're going to make a Tuscan Peasant Soup, because it's perfect weather for a nice hearty soup. This calls for pancetta, which I have already fried up, little diced pieces of pancetta that we're only going to put on top of the soup when we're getting ready to eat it. It's a garnish, and it's nice and crispy, and it's going to add a crispy, salty type of element to the soup. Delicious. I suppose you could say the main ingredient of the Tuscan soup is Savoy cabbage, which is completely different, although of the same family, than green cabbage. Take a look at the leaf, and you'll see it's all crinkly, and it's very soft and pliable. It's sweeter and much less flavorful. It's a milder cabbage. It's delicious. So I'm going to dice this up, and I'm doing it so you can see how we do it. It's very simple. I've shown you before how to dice things. But you see this guy here? That's the core. Nah, we don't really want that. So we're going to cut it out because it's tough and it's not necessary. So I'm going to cut down the middle. Then I'm going to make slices. This is how you dice everything. You dice your onions like this. You dice whatever it is, vegetable, you dice it that way. And then you just cut it down. And what it does is it makes all the pieces basically uniform in size, which is really what you want. This guy is making me a liar. So there. I'm going to just set it aside. Now I have my Dutch oven preheating. I cooked the pancetta in the Dutch oven, and I threw away all but 2 tablespoons of oil. So again, we're going to take this core out because it's not anybody's friend other than the leaves holding them together. Slice horizontally. Make some 1-inch strips, and you're making really a 1-inch type cube of the Savoy cabbage, and it goes in here. Now you're probably saying to yourself, look at all that. Well, it's going to wilt and it's going to cook down, so don't be concerned about it. I have already diced some of my onions, and I kept one so that you can see it again. So you're just going to cut the top off, cut it this way down the middle, and you're going to keep this little root section intact. You're going to peel one layer of your onion and discard it. And again, we're going to slice it horizontally. Take the tip of your knife and just go down. This is about maybe 1/3 of an inch strip that I'm making, and about the same amount of space for this point. Now, the reason why we keep this root end in is so you can hold on to it when you get down to the nitty-gritty, because you don't want to cut your fingers. That's not a good thing. So in they go. Now we're going to go over to the stove because we're going to start the cooking process. Most everything, we'll do the rosemary later. Delicious herb, by the way. We're going to zest a lemon, but we're going to go over here and we're going to put the onions in the preheated. Nice sound. You hear that sound? That's the sound you want to hear, because we're not really going to sweat these onions. You want to get a little color on them. And there's two cloves of garlic that I chopped up finely, and I'm going to throw that in. Take my trusty spatula. And we're going to let this cook. I'm going to put a little bit of salt and pepper. You want to season every layer of stuff that you put in, which doesn't mean you're going to put in a tablespoon of seasoning every time, just a pinch. So that was probably less than 1/16 of a teaspoon. And as we go on, there's a little bit of pepper that I just put in. We're going to taste it because the only way to know if it tastes good is to taste it. So we're going to let these cook until they get a little bit brown around the edges. So, back over here. We're going to look at the rosemary here. This is rosemary. It looks like a pine branch, and it kind of smells like pine. This is fresh, which to me is a wonderful herb. It's really a really tasty herb, and one that my sons don't like because it's kind of stiff, but the fresh one isn't so stiff. So we're just going to strip the leaves, just like that. You don't have to get fussy because you're going to chop it. There we go. So we're going to gather it together. That one got little, and you want to just chop, 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 chop. So you're going to make it get in the way of the blade, and then we're going to go like this. Remember, you're going to hold the knife really tight, and you're going to put your other hand to guide it, and you're just going to run it back and forth until it gets to the point where you like it. I want this finely chopped. The longer or the smaller piece that whatever it is you're chopping is, in this case, I did the same thing with the garlic. You mince it really fine. It's going to give you a lot of flavor with not a lot of quantity. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to put this in here. We're going to put some of it in to cook with the rest of the vegetables. Isn't that nice? Look at it. All nice and even. And then we're going to put some in towards the end so that the flavor is a little bit fresher. I tell you, when you use fresh herbs, it's going to really bump up the flavor of whatever you're cooking. In this case, soup, because soup can get really mellow as everything is cooking. So you're going to put in a little bit of freshness and go, wow, people are going to say, what's in here? And you're going to say, it's my family secret, and if I tell you what it is, I'm going to have to kill you. That's right. Back over here. Let's check a look and see how our onions are doing. We want them to get slightly brown, which they're not yet, so I'm going to bump up the heat a little bit. I've also got my mise en place pretty well set. There's carrots that are going to go in. This is really a beautiful recipe. Nice fresh carrots that I cut. This is diced tomato. You want to use 1 28 ounce of diced tomato. And these are cannelloni beans, also known as white kidney beans. We're going to put this in at the very end because if we don't, they're going to break apart, and that's okay, but we just really want to heat them through. So it's 2 cans, 2 15.5-ounce cans that I've already drained and rinsed. And that's why it's in the bowl, so that any more juice is... All right, so we're pretty good here. We've got some color on the onions. I can't smell because I have a cold, but guess what? I can smell this, and it smells wonderful. So let's get a bowl. I'm going to remove it from the heat, but I'm not going to shut off my burner. So if you do this, remember you still got the burner going. Do not put your hands on top of it. So we've got the garlic and the onion. Yum. Yum. But you know what? I can smell this a little bit. All right. We're going to put a little bit more oil in here. About a tablespoon of oil. So we're going to go twice around. Olive oil. You can use extra virgin olive oil, the first press, or you can use the milder version. I'm going to go back over to the counter and get my cabbage, because the cabbage is going in now. And we're going to do the same thing on a pretty high heat. We're just going to dump it. We're going to let it cook. We're going to put another pinch of salt in, a little bit of pepper. We're going to throw the carrots in too. We're just going to let it cook. The thing about soup, people think soup is really difficult to make. It isn't. There's nothing hard about it. It takes time because you want all your vegetables and everything that you're putting in there, you want it to cook through. And again, we want to get a little bit of color on the carrots and the cabbage, the Savoy cabbage. We're going to let that cook. We're going back over to the counter because I'm going to zest some lemon. Now the recipe, the original recipe, you know how I find a recipe and I have to make it my own. I have to, it's just in my nature. Calls for lemon juice. Well, I give it some thought. I don't really like the acidic flavor of of lemon, but I do like the flavor of lemon. So we're just gonna zest it. Get some of that real nice, the essence of the lemon. So the flavor comes through without any of the acidity. And you'll be able to see the little pieces of lemon in it. And it's also going to heighten up the flavor of everything. It's going to make it fresh and wake up your palate. And I think I've told you this before, but I have naked lemons a lot in my refrigerator. Someone came over yesterday and he wanted me to teach him how to cook something. I was like, sure, come on. It was a son of a friend of mine. And the recipe called for lemon juice. And we forgot to buy the lemon juice when we went to the market. So I had one lonely naked lemon in the refrigerator. It didn't look pretty and the skin got really hard. But we managed to be able to cut it in half and get a lot of wonderful juice out of it. But it just struck me as funny that we forgot it. It was kind of an integral part of the recipe. And I said, oh, Scott, look at this. I got a naked lemon. So here it is. Look at how nice that is. Delicious. Nice and fresh. Let's go back over and see how our cabbages and the carrots are doing. Yes, so we're seeing a little bit of color. You want to see a little bit of brown caramelization on the vegetables. Nice. And now we're going to put in some of the rosemary. Should have brought it with me. I have to go back over there and get some of the rosemary. The lemon we're going to put in at the very end. So let's go over here, and I'm going to I'm going to put in all but about a teaspoon of the rosemary. Just going to put it in and let it cook with everything else. Yeah. Nice. Nice. All right, I'm going to lower it now to about a medium high, and I'm going to start to add chicken broth. So, like always, I use unsalted anything because it gives me the opportunity to keep in control of the sodium. I'm not a big fan of salt, so I tend to err on the side of caution. You can always add salt. Can't take it away. So there's one box and another. And we're going to bring it to a boil. So I just turned it up high again. Chicken soup. Something about chicken soup. Do you know that there's something in chicken soup that literally, physically makes people feel better if they're not feeling well? But, you know, my kids, we like chicken soup. My husband, my mother, and I love chicken soup. So I tend to make it often. But when they were younger, you know, if they were sick, I would make it. So anytime they see it on the stove, who's sick? Well, you know what? Guess what? Nobody's sick. We just want chicken soup because it's just a comfort. One of those comforts. All right, I'm going to throw in the diced tomato that's been draining. And apparently I did a pretty good job of draining it because there's hardly any juice left in the bowl. We're going to bring it up to a boil. And then we're going to cover it and let it simmer for a while. So while that's coming up to a boil, we're going to go back over here. This calls for a garnish of pancetta and toasted breadcrumbs. So I'm going to get some fresh breadcrumbs out and we're going to get that process going. It's in the freezer. They were fresh at one time. Now they're fresh and they're frozen. What I do when we have Italian bread that's left over, well, sometimes, not all the time, I make crumbs out of it so that when it does defrost, this is what I use for all my stuffings, fresh breadcrumbs, because it's moister and tastes much better than the dry breadcrumbs that you buy in the store, which really have no texture to it. The only one that I like is panko crumbs, which is a Japanese breadcrumb. I like that. That's nice and crunchy. And I use that for breading purposes. But here we go. We're just going to put about a cup. I have my oven preheated at 350. I'm going to toss these in. Now I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I can't smell. The first batch I made, charcoal. So I'm going to try it again. Hopefully I'll remember before it gets to the point. We're going back, put this in my little oven and let it cook for just a few minutes. Back over here, let's check our soup. Not coming yet to a boil, but I think at this point in time we can start putting in some real seasoning. So I'm going to put in a teaspoon, and again we start slowly, a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper. Now, this is freshly ground pepper. I just ground it. So I buy the peppercorns, and I bought this cheap little coffee grinder. I don't grind coffee beans in this because all my spices go in here, and that's what I use. So if you have a coffee grinder that you actually use to make coffee with, don't use it for spice. Buy a separate one. I got this at Ocean State Job Lot years ago. They must have, I think it was the last one, and they just wanted to get rid of it. So keep your eyes open and see what you can find for wicked cheap, because that was wicked cheap. So I ground some pepper up fresh this morning, and you'll be really surprised if you have an opportunity to grind your own pepper of how potent it is, because it's freshly ground. You take a peppercorn, and which is a little tiny small, matter of fact, I'm going to show you. These are peppercorns. I buy kind of a big one because I use pepper a lot. And that's what it looks like. Little pepper berries, they're berries. And they're hard and dry. So when you break them by using the grinder, all that wonderful smell and taste is going to come through. So that's a tip for you today. So this thing is not boiling yet, but you do want to take your time and let it come to a full boil, a nice rolling boil. And then we'll cover it and let it simmer on its own. Let me check the breadcrumbs. All right. We're getting there. Keep your eye on them because they turn quickly. You might say, well, yeah, and it'll smell. When it starts to smell, then you know it's time to get it. When I was getting everything ready for this taping, one of the guys said, gee, I smell something. And guess what it was? My breadcrumbs. Black. And it wasn't rye bread, just plain old Italian bread. I do that also. I make breadcrumbs out of American bread. Doesn't matter if it's left over, I'm going to make breadcrumbs out of it. I should taste it, which I'm going to. I got to go over here and get a spoon. Actually, I'm going to get a few. Nobody wants my cold, so I don't want my cold. See? Ooh! I can actually taste it, and that rosemary makes a huge difference. I made a tomato sauce for the Christmas season, so I'm putting 2 more teaspoons of salt in. That I cooked with pancetta, tomato puree, garlic, of course. If I don't have my garlic, you know, what can I tell you? And rosemary, fresh rosemary. It was delicious. And so I'm starting to find different ways to make a tomato sauce that doesn't just have basil and or oregano in it. So the rosemary was different, and it added a really nice flavor. I used that to cook veal brajol, which veal cutlets that you roll with. I put fontina cheese and prosciutto, and I rolled it and put it in panko crumbs and baked it with that sauce. Really good, really good. Okay, so we've got some boiling going on here. So I'm going to lower it now to simmer. I'm going to put this on. We have to let it cook for a little while. So we'll be back. When the soup is ready, we'll be back. So I'll see you very shortly. Ciao. We're back, and guess what? It's soup. I can't wait. So again, it's Tuscan Peasant Soup. It has Savoy cabbage, white cannellini beans, onions and garlic, carrots. Now, while we were gone, I put the onions and the garlic in and let that cook nicely. Just a couple of minutes ago, I put the cannellini beans in so that they heat through because they're already cooked. You don't need to cook them. I actually was able to make breadcrumbs that are nice. So there's the breadcrumbs for the garnish, the pancetta, which I did a little while ago. And we got to top it off with some pecorino romano cheese. But we're not completely done yet. So I'm going to go back over to the stove, and I'm going to put the final ingredients in. Remember, I told you that at the end we're going to put in a little bit more rosemary to pop that flavor. So in the rosemary goes, and the lemon zest of 1 lemon. And we're going to put that in. Now, we don't really want anything cooked through because everything's cooked, but these 2 things that I just put in are just going to enhance the flavor. Oh! I really wish that we had smell-o-vision, because with the addition of that lemon rind and the rosemary, I got this waft of delicious, delicious. Oh, okay. I'm going to shut it off, and I'm going to have me some goodies. Perfect on a cold day like today. And you know it's going to be a cold night tonight. Hey, you know what I was thinking? I know they always put my email address, Claudia@thatstasty.net. I really, really would love to hear from you if you make one of my recipes, and let me know how you liked it and your family. We've got some nice, fresh baked rolls. So we've got that. I'm going to throw a little bit of breadcrumbs on it. It's going to give it a nice crunch. I'm going to throw a little bit of the diced pancetta. And with meat and cheese, it's really never just a little bit. But Now, nice crunchy soup. I got a munch. Oh, you know what this is? Tasty. That's tasty. Hey, you know what today is? This is my 10th episode. 10 of them! So excited. Let's taste this. Very nice. Okay. I want to hear from you. Text me, not text me, send me an email. Let me know if you've tasted any of my recipes. Also, let me know, hey, you know, I've always wanted to learn how to make this. If I can, I'll make it for you and give you the recipe. If not, well, we're both going to flounder around together. So, for the 10th episode of That's Tasty, I'm Claudia Donnell. This is Tuscan Peasant Soup. Bon appetito. Happy cooking, happy eating. See you next time.